Hi, it's Greg Dwyer, and welcome to Mindful Conversations. So glad that you're watching. The purpose of this episode is the same as every episode that we do here at Mindful Conversations. It's simple. We want to give you something to think about which will actually change your life. Now, the theme for this episode is about self-identity. The biggest question you can ask yourself, or the most important question that you could ask yourself, is who are you? And with that, how you show up in the world. Now, I'm really excited because my guest tonight is Joe Napick. I've known Joe Napick for 20 years. When I wanted to learn sales, I worked for a sales company here in Connecticut, and I met Joe, and he was great at what he did, and so I wanted to model him. And so today, this afternoon, no matter when you're watching, he's going to be our guest. We're going to talk about sales, we're going to talk about personal development, and most of all, we're going to talk about this topic of self-identity. Joe Napick is an expert, so you're going to want to stay tuned and learn something. We're going to give you something to think about, I guarantee. So this last week, I had the opportunity to go to New York, to Manhattan. And a friend of mine has been telling me about a show for the last 6 months called In and of Itself. And so this week, I was able to go down to New York and to see the show. And the show really is about identity. And it's a one-man show lasting about 70 minutes. And the actor is also a magician. And what he does in the show is bring up this topic of identity. Who do you think you are? When you walk into the theater, there's a little card that says, I am. I am a cowboy, I am an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and so there are 1,000 little tickets that you get to choose from. And everybody walks into the theater and they have to choose just one. Now I know when I looked at it, I thought to myself, well, what do I choose? Do I choose this or do I choose that? Finally, I decided to pick I am an entrepreneur. If you get a chance to see the show, I highly recommend it. It's about identity. And inside the show, he proves that identity is an illusion. How we think about ourselves, a lot has to do with our past. How we think about ourselves, a lot has to do with who we surround ourselves with. And most of all, we're not just one thing. I'm not just an entrepreneur. Whatever you do, I don't know what you do. Maybe you're a mom, maybe you're a dad, maybe you're a student, maybe you're a politician, maybe you own a business. But think about it. You're more than just that one thing. And you don't reveal yourself to everybody. People know you at different levels. And so identity is the topic and self-esteem today, tonight, this afternoon. So behind me, I have this drawn out, this diamond. And there are two aspects of communication that are really important, very important. And we're going to focus on this now, which is how we communicate with ourselves. Now, if you're listening to my voice right now and you're saying, I don't really communicate with myself, and you're saying that to yourself, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about self-talk. We're talking about what you say to yourself in private, or what you're saying to yourself right now, or what you're saying to yourself even when you're dreaming at night. This is something that's going on 24/7, 7 days, all the time, which is communication with yourself. How you will show up in the world, at the workplace or at home or wherever you are in society, is based on this one thing. One thing. It's self-image. It's how you perceive yourself and how other people perceive you as well. About 20 years ago, I came across a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. If you get a chance, go to the library, go to Barnes & Noble, buy the book. I have like 3 copies. This is one of my copies. Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Now here's the story behind Maxwell Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon. And so what he did is he helped people look beautiful. So people were in car accidents, or something happened terrible to their face, and he would reconstruct their image outwardly. And he would make them look beautiful. He was an expert at what he did. Now this is what he discovered. he discovered that even though he gave them a beautiful image, which was better than they had before, better nose, better eyes, better smile, and that they really looked great, even though he was able to help them with a knife and restore their beauty, many people didn't perceive it inwardly. And this is where the whole concept of self-image comes from. If you read self-development books or you've been to seminars, most of what you'll read, most of what you will hear out there is based on this book, Psycho-Cybernetics. I recommend it to everyone. So if you want more information about it, you can send me an email. Just go to gregdwyer.com. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you get this book. If you get this book and you read it about self-image or you have questions, just go to Greg Dwyer, G-R-E-G, D as in diamond, W as in wealth, Y as in young, ER.com. Send me an email. I'll actually talk about it on the air. So I'd love to hear what you think about this book. This is a must when it comes to helping you and assisting you to strengthen your self-image. Now let's face it, most people are living in the past. Things that happened 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 30 years ago or 100 years ago, and they're living this out day after day, week after week, month after month. Experts tell us in the area of communication that we have about 45 to 65,000 thoughts every single day. And this is the scary part. The next day you have the same thoughts. So there's a pattern. So Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz's book, will help anybody rearrange their belief around their self-image. Self-image is so important. If you believe you are fat, right? Think about this just for a moment. If you believe that you are a fat person and you go on a diet and you don't change your self-image of being fat, it doesn't matter how much water you drink, doesn't matter how much exercise you get or what protocol you follow. If you have a self-image that you are fat, it doesn't matter what you do outwardly. If you don't change between the 6 inches between your ear or you don't change your self-image, you're going to see yourself as a fat person. Make sense? Of course it does. Same thing with finances or with money. Let's say you take a class on finances and you learn to pay off your debt and get out a credit card, maybe get out of your mortgage and live below your means. Most people, that's simple, right? However, if you have a self-image that you come from a poor family or that you have ringing in your ear your father or your mother saying to you that money does not grow on trees, and that's embedded in your subconscious, then most likely that is what's going to happen. You're going to find yourself sabotaging your success. Now, if Freud was right, this is the subconscious. This is what we're not aware of. This is what we are aware of above the line. So a lot of these beliefs, and I have the word belief here, or believe, I should say, is dictating how we are acting in the world. Now, if we want to get to the root of what we believe about our weight, about finances, about relationships, about career, about whatever we do, the key is simple. Just simply look at our results. By looking at our results, we will have an impact or an awareness, I should say, about what we truly believe. So if you're struggling with your weight, obviously see a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I will tell you it's probably not a weight problem. It's a self-image problem. If you're in business for yourself and you're not succeeding, again, not here to give you business advice, but I will tell you, work on your self-image. If you don't like the relationship that you're in, again, if you find yourself breaking up and going back to someone else that is identical to the person that you just left, and you start seeing a pattern on and on and on and on, well, there's a clue. And the clue is what you truly believe about yourself. And a lot of these beliefs are not true. They're lies. They are perceptions that we created in childhood. We've held on to them, and also we've looked for other people who validate our identity. We tend to surround ourselves with people that are just like we are. My mom used to say this all the time. Birds of a feather, they flock together. And so you look for people that are just like you to confirm who you are. So to break that pattern, it's simple. Examine your results and examine your beliefs. That's the key to all of this. So let me tell you a little story. This is a story, a metaphor, if you will, about a frog and a scorpion. And the frog is sitting on the side or the bank of a river, and so is a scorpion. And the scorpion says to the frog, "Mr. Frog, will you be going across the river?" And the frog says, "Yes, I will. I will be going across the river." And the scorpion says to the frog, "Will you let me jump on your back so that I can go across and so that I can be safe on the other side of the river?" And the frog says to the scorpion, "I don't think so. That wouldn't be a right thing to do." And the scorpion said, "Why?" And the frog said, "Because you're a scorpion. I know what's going to happen. We're going to get halfway through the river, and you're going to sting me, and I'm going to be paralyzed. And I'm going to drown, and you're going to drown." And the scorpion says to the frog, "I would never do that. I wouldn't do that. I promise you, I give you my word. I won't do that." The frog says, "No, there's no way in the world. I'm going to take you on my back across that river because I know what's going to happen. You're going to sting me, and I'm going to drown, and you're going to drown." And the scorpion insists, "No, I'm telling you right away. I give you my word. I promise I will not do that. Please take me across. I really, really want to go across." Finally, the frog says, "Okay, as long as you don't sting me. Don't sting me. Do we have an agreement? Do you promise not to sting me?" And the scorpion says, "I promise. I give you my word." So the scorpion jumps on the back of the frog, and the frog takes him, and he's swimming out 3/4 of the way, and all of a sudden, guess what happens? The scorpion stings the frog. And as they're going down, as the frog is being paralyzed, the frog says to the scorpion, "Why did you do that? Why did you sting me? We're both going to drown." And the scorpion said, "It's because I am a scorpion." We act out in the world who we really believe that we are. And we find people in our world that validate this reality, which may not be true. I'm hoping I'm giving you something to think about. We'll be back after this break. You do want to come back for Joe Napick. Hey, thanks for coming back to Mindful Conversations. I'm excited because my good friend Joe Napick is here. I've known Joe for over 20 years. He is an expert in sales, persuasion, and also personal growth. Joe, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate
Greg,
this.
I appreciate you having me. It's great catching up with you, and really appreciate coming in and seeing you.
Can you believe it's been 20 years?
20 years goes by in the blink of an eye. That's what they say, and it really has.
Yeah.
You know, you and I started off at the ground floor, learning together, and I'm so happy to see, how far you've come, where you've come from, and the amount of growth that's taken place over the years, and just so excited for you and all your endeavors.
Well, I got to tell you, I joined this sales group, and I found you as a leader, and I said to myself, if I'm going to learn sales, I'm going to model somebody. And you became manager, and I learned from you. We became friends. I've known your family for years, and you just stood out as a leader, and you are a leader, and in the community as well, but you also know how to sell and persuade. I mean, who taught you? How did you learn it?
Yeah.
How did you learn it?
That's a great question. For me, it was like a lot of other salespeople, going through the initial struggles, right, and learning the process. And I heard you mention at the top of your show about communicating with yourself, and I had an opportunity at a very young age in college to see Bob Proctor speak, and Bob Proctor was sort of a mentor of mine. He used a specific phrase that really stuck out in my mind. He said, don't be a victim of negative self-talk. Remember, you are listening. And I thought to myself, wow, how simple, but how profound. And at that point, through all the sales training you go through, there isn't really any self-image seminars at the time, going back 20 years ago. And it's really nice to have someone like yourself who brings that to the forefront, because it plays such an important part in any role, whether you're in business, whether you're in sales, or a nurse or a teacher. And Bob Proctor was the start for me. That was the start of my learning, and then going through a series of courses, Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie and what have you. So it's been a great ride.
Now, Dale Carnegie, you mentioned this. Now, when you were working in the sales organization, you broke away. I remember it was a summer or so, and you were working Dale Carnegie training. And I followed your lead. I actually worked for Dale Carnegie as well. And a lot of successful people in corporate America or business or sales have gone through that training. When you talk about sales training, a lot of times people think of persuasion, they think of tricks, they think about manipulating people. But I think your level of sales, my level of sales, is about connecting with people. Talk a little bit about communication and connection.
Yeah, sure. There's sales training.
Right.
And sales training is great when you speak to the process, the sales process. What is a prospect? How do you go about prospecting for clients? All the various trainings and the steps that go on from initiating a conversation through the close of a potential sale. And the one thing that always stuck out with me through my learnings with Dale Carnegie was speaking in terms of another people's interest. And doing that on the surface necessarily doesn't provide the success. It's when you dig deep and understand how people pick up on your ability to relate to them, to communicate with them, and have a genuine interest in who they are, what they do, what their product is, what are their activities outside of the business world, etc. And Dale Carnegie is a phenomenal course to take for anybody who wants to get outside of their comfort zone and work on some things that they see as a need to be developed.
Yeah, I remember taking the course, and one of the things you had to do is public speaking, which is what most people are afraid of. And so if you can take a person, put them in front of an audience or a group of people, they'll break through that fear, and that's a big thing for folks.
Sure. The course is often seen as a public speaking course because so many people have taken it over the years to avoid that trap and that fear of having to talk in front of other people. And I think, as having worked for the company and going, beyond extended courses and what have you, it's much deeper than that. And,
right.
and I think it's great that, self-image was a topic you had chose today, because that's really where it all starts.
Well, I chose it because of who you are. Because and I mean this sincerely, when I met you, I thought to myself, this guy's confident. This guy knows what he's doing. He's a leader. I want to listen to him. And I think we feed off each other for the last 20 years.
Absolutely. And Greg, we've been doing it for 20 years. You mentioned it. I mean, we're getting old. It's been a long time,
I know.
But there's not a day that goes by that I don't wake up in the morning and my first thought is, today's going to be a great day. Just force feeding myself that in the morning and every evening before I go to bed puts my mind in a different perspective. I mentioned Bob Proctor earlier. I want to just talk just briefly about his technique. I think you refer to it as an anchor.
Yeah, an anchor, a trigger.
Right. Bob Proctor taught the switch mentality, whereby a negative thought pops into your mind. You identify that is a negative thought. You immediately change that to a positive thought, and through repetition, you can literally feel and see your emotions, your self-image changing into something that more positive and how you want to be. And in the business world, how people want to perceive, want to see you, and who they want to deal with, and who they want to buy from.
And you got to want it. I mean, a lot of people, if they don't want that change, if they don't want to grow, or they don't want to live to their full potential, they'll become a victim. And you're not a victim. You've been victorious in your work and in your sales and your family and your career. But it's a choice, and it's also about changing your mind, literally changing the way you look at the world.
Sure. In the sales world, at some point, when there's $0 in your pocket through the frustration and the rejection and the people declining your services, at some point you have to decide that you're either going to make that change or not. So when it affects your career, it's a lot easier to make that decision that it's something that you have to do.
Well, I also see with technology today, with the kids and just people in general, they're tied to their cell phones, they're tied to their technology, and a lot of times people don't know how to carry on a conversation with another human being. And they're challenged because they don't know how to connect, they don't know how to look someone in the eye, and they don't know how to read signals. How did you learn it? How did you learn that?
I was speaking with, I'll tell it through a story. I was speaking with a coworker recently who had, she was talking about some of the cliche phrases that we use throughout life. For instance, in passing, you and I may say hello, right, which is a greeting. But many people will say, "How are you?" And the question that I always have to is, I'd love to tell you how I am. Are you really looking for how I am? So what you say, or how are you doing? Well, not bad. Right. Not bad it's a negative connotation.
That's true.
Regardless of how bad things could be, I always want to tell myself that things are going well, and it seems like that becomes a pattern over and over again of successes and makes for a happier life. So regardless of what you do, what field you're in, what stage of your life you're in, I don't think that you could ever get enough self-learning, motivation, and most importantly, changing your self-image to something that you want to be.
And I think you're competing with the negativity of other people in the workplace. You're competing against the media, news. I mean, let's face it. If it bleeds, it reads. So the media is constantly going to talk about the negative side of life. People are drawn to that, and therefore people will buy commercial time, and people will buy products for anxiety. So it's really going against that stream or against that culture, and to condition your own mind and prime yourself. I do this lecture called The Magic of Communication, and in it I talk about how to prime yourself in the morning, how to condition yourself, and how to find 7 things every single day that you're grateful for, so that you're looking for it. And if you look for it, you find it.
Sure. Yeah. And the math turns out to be, over the course of a year,
2,555 entries. And so at the end of the year, I take a look at my journal and I see all of those things that are written, and I'm like, okay, did I have a bad day? Sure, I had a bad day, but it's really about conditioning yourself to see what's going well. And when you do that, you attract more and more and more of that. So let me ask you a quick question in a minute.
Sure.
I know it's not fair because we didn't rehearse any of this. How do you want to be remembered?
That's a great question. Sure. I look up to my father. My father is a very simple man, but as a child, I always remembered his friends, his classmates growing up, always talking about how everybody liked him. He was a man of integrity. He was, and I think your integrity is probably the most important thing that you could possibly be positively seen as throughout your life. So all the money in the world doesn't change who you truly are, who you're striving to be, and how people perceive you. And if I could leave some type of legacy and some type of impact, not only on my children, but on people I come in contact on a daily basis, then I think that's a pretty good life.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So it ties into the whole story of identity that I had before the break. So before the show, the producer asked you to think of a letter. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, all the way to Z. So we're looking at, 26 letters. I was not there when you thought of it, and you chose any letter. You
That's
had
correct.
the free choice. No one told you to pick a letter. Right. No one asked you later what you picked. I mean, this was completely private, totally private. And you felt that you had a free choice, right?
That's correct.
All right, so let's just play with this. And I don't know if I'm going to get it right, but would you just say the letter A? Just say it out loud.
A.
And then B.
B.
C.
C.
D.
D.
E.
E.
F.
F.
G.
G.
H.
H.
I.
I.
J.
J.
K.
K.
L.
L.
M.
M.
N.
N.
O.
O.
P.
P.
Q.
Q.
R.
R.
S.
S.
T.
T.
U.
U.
V.
V.
W.
W.
X.
X.
Y.
Y.
Z.
Z.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to do it backwards, but then you just have to turn your chair around. Okay. I don't know if I got it. So say A.
A.
B.
B.
C.
C.
D.
D.
E.
E.
F.
F.
G.
G.
Okay. So one of the things I teach in the magic of communication is to be able to read someone. Not that we can read minds, because I certainly can't read anybody's mind, but I have a strong feeling, and I could be wrong, that it's either A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. It's within the first 10. Okay. Is that true?
That's
okay.
correct.
That's great.
Very good.
All right. All right. And I am going to say, and I'm thinking, it's interesting because I know you listened to the broadcast, the first part, and I wrote the word self, and I wrote the word others, and I wrote the word believe. And I don't know if you realize this, Joe, but in the word self and in the word others and in the word believe, there are a lot of E's as in Easter. Is it possible that you picked the letter E?
Well, and I will confirm, Greg, that you did give me free choice, and you had me write it down on a piece of paper, and I do have it here. Is right
yeah, let's see it. Let's see
and
it.
It's pretty amazing because I had my agent looking out there for any type of cameras or tricks or what have you.
Look at that E.
That's pretty good. That's great.
That is pretty good. Excellent.
Very nice.
So in the last minute that we have, what would you encourage our listeners to do besides join Dale Carnegie or read Psycho-Cybernetics?
Greg, it's not just because we've been friends for this long, but GregDwyer.com, it's a steady stream of positive information. Greg's a great guy. He's a great trainer, a great leader.
Excellent.
Go to GregDwyer.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I can see we're almost out of time. I'm Greg Dwyer, Joe Napick, and I hope we gave you something to think about. See you next time.